Professor. This afternoon we are continuing with our marking of the International Science Day by having a Science Week, and within this week we are focusing on science, technology and innovation. We are here at Kororo Ground with several scientists from different institutions and organizations all exhibiting. We want to ensure that science, technology and innovation is given priority to drive our economic transformation. So this afternoon I'm very happy to be here with a group of scientists, and we are using one health approach. Before we proceed, I'm going to request the viewers to allow us to remove our face masks for proper interaction. All of us, we have been vaccinated. We have taken the COVID test. We have also followed all the other standard operating procedures for the prevention of COVID-19. So allow us at this juncture to take off our masks so that we can interact with you quite very well. And having now removed our mask, allow me to introduce the subject for this afternoon. We are going to address ourselves to pathogen economy. Now you may wonder what is now this pathogen economy is all about. Pathogen, just look at it from small microorganisms that we live with them in the environment. They are part of us, and that's why we talk of One Health. But some of those microorganisms can cause diseases, and they can cause diseases to us humans, to animals, and even plants. And we are going to see this afternoon, these organisms, even when they cause a disease to us, they are still very important because they are part of the ecosystem. And in this week we want to see the importance, the economic importance of these pathogens. And that's why we are saying we are talking about pathogen economy. And this is in line with the preparations for us to celebrate the International Science Day, which will be tomorrow. But with me, we have distinguished scientists and economists who are going to enlighten you and give you more information about this pathogen economy. What is it? What can we explore from it? So with me, allow me to introduce the panelists this afternoon, our discussants this afternoon, and these are distinguished scientists in their own field, with diverse backgrounds, and we are using One Health. As they introduce themselves, you will actually see that One Health is here to work. So with me, and there is also, we have a lot of gender balance in this panel this afternoon, and I will start with my just neighbor here, Dr. Shiba Gita. She's an epidemiologist, but I will allow her 1 minute to a few seconds to say more about herself before we go into the discussion. Shiba.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. An epidemiologist. I work with the Tropical Health and Education Trust as their country director, but I also serve as an honorary lecturer of epidemiology at Makerere University School of Public Health. And I'm part of the preside team representing the epidemiologists.
Yeah, Shiba, thank you so much, and you are most welcome. The viewers are excited and looking forward to hear from you more. Let's hear briefly from our next neighbor, Professor Wako Paul. Please, if you introduce a little bit more about yourself so that the viewers know whom they are speaking to.
Thank you very much, moderator. I'm Professor Paul Wako. I'm a clinical pharmacologist by training, specializing in drug discovery and development, and I'm currently serving as Vice Chancellor of Stema University.
Thank you so much, Professor Paul. Now next to person is Dr. Chibuli Juliet. Please say a little bit more about yourself so that the viewers know whom they will be interacting with. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Dr. Julia Chibuli, and I work with Makerere University, and I'm an anthropologist. My major interest is social affairs and community with behavior related issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Our next panelist, Muhumuza, please go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we start this discussion.
Thank you, moderator. Dr. Fred Muhumuza is my name. I'm here because science makes economies move. So I'm an economist who is so much interested in science as the engine of that development, which blends and makes our lives happy. You wouldn't be seeing us if it wasn't for science and the economy. Thank you.
Yes, our dear viewers, this afternoon, this is the team of our panelists. And to make it, to put it into perspective, our dear viewers, COVID-19 is one of those diseases caused by a pathogen. I'm not going to mention the name of the pathogen because it is very long, but this pathogen is caused by one of those microorganisms I was talking about, a virus that causes COVID-19. All of us, we know what COVID-19 has done to us. But this afternoon, we are also going to look at some of those potentials that come from these pathogens. And we want to position these pathogens to become our source of income, our source of transformation. If we look at Uganda alone, we have over 200 pathogens, all of them requiring drugs, vaccines, diagnostics, and so many other supplies. But most of these things today, we import them from other countries. Can't we use our science and technology to have all these supplies from within Uganda? So with us this afternoon, we are having the distinguished scientists here, and one by one, they are going to share with us those opportunities that are available from different science value chains that we Ugandans, we can tap in, develop ourselves, but also save ourselves from these diseases. Remember, not only ourselves, but also our animals and also our environment. Now, allow me to invite Shiba Jita, who is an epidemiologist, to tell us from that perspective, what opportunities are in that field, Dr. Shiba, that we can tap in, or we are already tapping into in order to exploit more that area of epidemiologists in transforming our economy, but also saving lives. Thank you so much, Shiba. Over to you.
Thank you very much. So regarding from an epidemiological perspective, as you correctly mentioned, Uganda is endowed with so many pathogens. We are within the hotspot for most of the viruses that are emerging. Some are not yet known, so you can be guaranteed that there will be many outbreaks or epidemics emerging within Uganda because we lie within the hot zone. As epidemiologists, we study about disease-causing agents, their distribution, the determinants, the risk factors of the people who are likely to fall ill with disease from these agents, and are also able to identify, by identifying those risk factors, we are able to propose ways in which these diseases can be treated, or we can prevent the cause of these diseases. So what COVID has done, it has demonstrated to us that it's very important for us to have locally generated information or evidence. Gone are the days when we had to wait for foreigners to come in and do studies and inform us on what we need to do. Because as you've all witnessed, the way COVID has played out in the different populations and countries varies from one place to another, meaning there is a need to have local generated evidence to inform our preventive interventions. So there is room for big data, especially. And there is room for us to link up with other industries like technology. Given the discoveries now, we can no longer go to the field and be collecting data the traditional way that we used to collect data with pen and paper. Now we can use our smartphones, because the penetration of smartphones is quite high in Uganda and Africa generally, and other technology that we can use. So that's one area. And then also it has given us an opportunity to start viewing these pathogens with a different lens. When we were studying when you are looking at a pathogen or a disease, we used to wear the lens of what is the importance of this pathogen from a medicinal point of view, who is likely to fall sick, and what intervention can we take to prevent this disease. But today I want to encourage all the scientists out there and my fellow epidemiologists to include a third lens, and that is the commercial lens, by looking at how many people are affected by this disease, and if we are able to develop products that are able to prevent the spread of this disease, there would be commercial value. So that we stop only looking at pathogens as gloom and doom, but also view them as there is an opportunity for us to commercialize and not only make a contribution to our economy, but also to better ourselves as scientists. Thank you, moderator.
Yes, thank you so much, Shiba, for those insights. We continue to learn and encourage you, our dear viewers, that it is not only the members you are seeing here on the panel, but even you can make it, you can manage it. Before COVID-19 came, we used to import all the face masks, but as I talk of today, some face masks are being done from here. That's one of the ways. And I also want to remind you that we cannot eliminate these pathogens. They are here with us, so the better we plan and develop our technology, much the better. So Shiba, is there any advances we have gone into this area where we have developed some innovations for disease surveillance that we can now deploy without depending on the foreign surveillance systems, so that it is developed by our own, it is patented, and it can be as a source of income for our scientists? Shiba.
Thank you, Chair. I think we have some products that are in the pipeline. However, I think I would not want to be so preemptive to bring up these issues at the front, because as you know, with issues of patenting that you've raised, it's important to disclose information at the right time. So what I can say for now, there are products that are under being produced, but one that is already out, that was produced by a team from Makerere University, the RAN team, is the EpiTent. And this came at a backdrop of the Ebola epidemic that we had that ravaged West Africa and the rest of the world. It threatened to become a pandemic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shiba. EpiTent is a mobile hospital temporary structure that can be moved to any part of the country and provide shelter for where people can access medical services. And that's innovation from here, Uganda. So, Shiba, thank you so much. Now, all these diseases, they require interventions, and interventions can be in form of vaccines, can be in form of drugs and others. Professor Wako, could you enlighten us, the viewers want to know what we Ugandans as scientists we are doing in order to come up with our own drugs, our own diagnostics, our own treatments? Professor Wako, please give us some kind of insight. Who can do it? Over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator. I think that previously, whenever a disease broke out, the thinking was more of how do we solve it, and we didn't pay a lot of attention to the opportunities coming with this disease. And this is how this concept of pathogen economy is coming on board. History has it that we had HIV around, and we were waiting for therapeutics, medicines from other countries. And indeed, in the scientific community, we were extremely worried that should this epidemic affect some of the countries that give us the medicines, then we could not be able to manage the HIV pandemic. Fortunately, the pandemic didn't go that far. It was contained. COVID-19, I think, has accelerated this thinking, because this time the countries where we've been running to are the countries where the epidemic started.
Yes, Professor Wako, currently Uganda is using about 1.7 billion per year in importing pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely.
What do you think that money can do for us as local scientists in order to come up with our own innovation?
Definitely we would do a lot if we were able to substitute, do import substitution and make our medicines here, our vaccines here. We could be able to go a long way in solving this problem, and that money could be used to improve the livelihood of people in Uganda. So generally, the pathogen economy is bringing in the concept of looking at diseases as a source of livelihood. How can we improve our livelihood? And indeed, Uganda has responded tremendously, especially in the past 2 years. We've been able to start a number of initiatives. We have teams that are working to develop vaccines. We have teams which are working on therapeutics. And we have teams which are working on making diagnostics here in the country. Of course, one would say, yes, they are making them. How about if COVID-19 ends? But the key issue is that capacity is being built, and in the future, we should be able to respond much faster.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. Probably the viewers may be wondering there, they say, how do we explore this area? How can we get involved? How can we participate? I'm coming from Kamwenji. What can I contribute to this field of developing pharmaceuticals and other needs from the pathogens? How can the rest of the public and the society participate?
I think our country has been building a lot of capacity over time. In universities, we have extremely highly qualified academic staff who have actually been able to take up this responsibility heavily, and now we are really moving forward. We have a lot of infrastructure in various institutions. I think one of the challenges we've been having is that our infrastructure is distributed in various institutions without coordination. And that's how I would like to thank the team which was put up under Preside, that they've been able to establish networks that could help in putting together this infrastructure to be used for a common cause.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor. We'll be coming back to you. Now let me turn to one of our other panelists, Juliet. Juliet, when I was still very young and growing up as a young man, my mother used to make a concoction of different things, and I would get well. And when I started understanding, I got to learn that that's what is called indigenous technical knowledge. Where is this indigenous knowledge in this era of science and technology? You as a social scientist, where can we tap into that field in order to enhance our science and technology? Over to you, Julia.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's a privilege and an honor to talk about the pathogen economy, but at the same time to emphasize the fact that we have indigenous knowledge, and our society from far history indicates that we do have a rich economy. We have different types of herbs, we have different types of trees, we do have different types of shrubs everywhere. And our great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers used to use these in terms whenever we would have diseases like malaria, any type of fever, diarrhea in the society. So when those diseases would come about, they would be treated with using herbs. So this is what we call indigenous knowledge. So science today has made indigenous knowledge visible. And that's one of the reasons we are here today, that our science are trying to show innovations. We've seen bananas, and people are making hand sanitizer from the bananas, and we know that we have to wash our hands. And for anybody to survive, in 1918, when there was the Spanish flu which affected the world, we realized that hygiene was very important. Cough etiquette was very important. So hygiene was the best issue, and that's how the word "bless you if you survived" came about.
Okay, so Juliet, you are telling us that all of us, we can be scientists. From our background, wherever we are, all of us, we can enhance that indigenous knowledge, transform it into innovations, and then make money for ourselves and also for our economy. But you brought out something very, very, very important, that Uganda is very rich in biodiversity. We have all these different herbs, we have different environments and trees, all of them important for serving our lives. And all of us, it is our responsibility to preserve, protect this mother nature as we get services from this nature. From my classes, I would be talking about ecosystem services and so on. But for the purpose of this discussion, the environment where we live, everything that we partake from this environment helps us, and it is our duty and our responsibility to preserve and protect while exploiting for economic transformation. And now that takes me to one of our important panelists here this afternoon, who is an economist. And in Uganda, we are now about 43 million people. That's a very, very good number for us to drive this economy. We are still growing and expanding. So from economic perspective, what can we do with this pathogen economy, with this growing population, with the rich biodiversity we have in this country? What potentials, how economics come in, how can we exploit these pathogens? Thank you so much. Over to you, Fred.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon once again, our viewers and listeners out there. The economy is everything. The moderator was shying away from the word the ecosystem. Well, that's exactly what it is. We are here, COVID is with us and it's not going away. It is part of our ecosystem now. But maybe because we just discovered it, the pathogens, as he said, there are so many around us. We might discover more as we go along. Now, some are good for us, as 43 million people. They have left us to grow. But as we grow, we begin to squeeze them in their ecosystems as well. You cut down the trees, you begin to eat animals you are not eating. Now, and before you know it, you have entered the pathogen space. So that growth of the economy is both good and can be bad. And that's why I'm glad I'm sitting with scientists who help us to understand those dynamics and see how do we exist. But we are saying, how do we make money out of all this? How do you make a living? Because you must live with these pathogens and also make money. We were looking at the statistics for the East African community alone, the 5 countries really. A few years back, we are importing goods, pharmaceuticals, worth $1.74 billion. Now, and we only make about 10% of that. If we are tapping our indigenous ones, who knows, we'll be saving, but we'll also be making money. COVID-X is out there. So homegrown, does it work? Does it not work? That's already science trying to venture into the economic space, but you begin to notice that nobody will allow you in this space for free. You have to certify your drug, because these are human lives. How do we go over all those? Now, each of these descriptions I'm making, there is an opportunity to make money, to offer the patents, to develop the science, to see an opportunity, to sell it, to preserve people. So you can make money by research. Some of these people are talking about here are researchers, they earn money. Out of research, they generate knowledge which you can sell after patenting it, but that knowledge can also be transformed into goods and services. We are here surviving on the integration of that science into the economy. We are all now on WhatsApp and what is happening there? It is science from a physics lab, blended by a business person who served it to us as a product, and they are making money. So that's how the economy survives in this ecosystem. And it should be a welcome thing that COVID came and woke us up. We are now studying online. We are having meetings online. It's cheap to us, but it's making somebody money. I wish that somebody was me. I make money out of your people's livelihoods.
Yes, Fred, when we talk in terms of economics, we start talking about suppliers and consumers. When you look at our economy, I think we are mostly consumers on most of the things. So we need to turn around and be able to be the suppliers also, to be able to turn to tap into the global economy. And most of our viewers will say, but if I start making this, where will I sell it? Maybe our viewers need to know, is there a market for some of these products if we can innovate and make? If we look at East African community, if you look at Africa population, then look at the global population, viewers need to appreciate and understand that actually there is a market, or there could be a market. Maybe you could give more light in that perspective.
It's good to speak about the market, because quite often in economics we say the customer is the king.
Yes.
Begin with the market. Now, many of us have had hardships because you say, this is my product. No, it can't be your product. You are not the one to consume it. It's their product. So if you look out there, what do people want? And how do you design this for them? People fall sick. So they certainly, when they fall sick, they need treatment. They will need people who are trained to treat them. But they also need knowledge to avoid falling sick in the first place.
Yes.
Now, all those are markets out there. That every time I see so many people sick, it's because nobody has taken advantage to study what are their needs. You talked about masks. This is knowledge from science. Science says this pathogen moves through people being close to each other. So social distance. But then we realize we are social beings. We cannot social distance. We must come closer to each other. Then science came and said, fine, if you must come closer, you put on a mask. By the way, it can only move from surfaces to your mouth and possibly through your hand. Sanitize. Now you as a person out there, you should be watching and say, what are the needs they are talking about? How do I position myself to be the one to give the sanitizer, to be the one to sell the mask? And we are really happy in a sense that COVID created new opportunities for people to make money. Selling of masks became an essential service. That could bring you to town. That could make you some money. While you've lost your job elsewhere, selling of masks is available, selling of sanitizer was available. So those became opportunities. But who is making the sanitizer? The alcohol people converted quickly into sanitizer. That's why I'm saying the market is always around. But are you observant enough to tap the science, make it a product to meet the needs of the people? We pay for a need. So if you don't see my need, you may not see me as a market. And yet there I am, I'm a market, fully-fledged for you.
Yes, thank you so much, Fred. I will be coming back to you again, but now I want to turn again to Professor Paul Wako. We know that most of the pharmaceutical products we see on the market, in one way or another, they have a plant base. Or the origin is one of the chemical properties or ingredients is plant-based. And I've already said Uganda is very rich in biodiversity. Everywhere you go, we have in abundance all these different plants. And in COVID, we have seen that actually local remedies or herbal remedies have played a very key role. So, Professor Wako, from the pharmaceutical perspective, what message do we need to tell our dear viewers in terms of exploiting this very good niche of our Mother Nature, that it has provided us with a diversity of different plants, all of them with chemical and biochemical properties that are important for pharmaceutical industry? And what innovations are going on right now in that perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator.
Yeah.
Definitely, plants actually pioneered medicine. The history is very clear on that. And indeed, it will continue to be a source of many products for treatment of disease. And of what is most important is that these plants need to be assessed because the global market needs really products with proved efficacy and safety. In the medical world, we cannot try out anything. And what is coming out of recent is that a number of initiatives have started to test these plants. Previously, there has been a lot of screening of plants in vitro. That's checking whether plants work, but in vitro systems. But during the COVID-19 situation, we were able to move up front, and I'm really grateful to the support we got. Because for a long time, we've been wanting to carry out clinical trials on some of our natural products for them to be competitive. For a product to be able to hit the market, one, you must carry out some studies, first in vitro, that's the test tube. Next, you have to carry out some tests in experimental animals like mice, rabbits, and then you have to carry out some clinical trials.
Oh, our dear viewers, what I'm learning from Professor Wako is that science is a process.
So
you
science,
go through different stages. Yes.
Science is a process. It takes time. It needs investments. And therefore, we should be prepared to move this journey as a country if we are to benefit from these natural products.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. And having said that, I know Dr. Shiba talked about surveillance. And when we talk about surveillance, our dear viewers, maybe you think it is only done when it is part of the diseases. But As I've said, we have a big diversity of different resources. Is surveillance can it be applied to all other areas, including plant documentation and profiling of different medicinal plants? What is available in that field? What can we do?
Thank you, moderator. You've raised a very critical issue. The science that we do as epidemiologists or as researchers is not limited to just the human being. Because for disease to happen, you must have a disease-causing agent, which we call a pathogen. Then you must have the host, which is the human being in this case, or the animal, your domestic animals that you keep, your cows, your goats. They can also fall sick, and we don't want them to fall sick. But most importantly, you have the environment within which the host and the pathogen live. So for disease to happen, there is an interplay of those three. So when we are undertaking surveillance, we do surveillance of those three if we are to be effective. And the opportunities there. Because as you've said, as part of the process of doing surveillance in the environment, we have this rich biodiversity of plants and animals. Some are beneficial, but how do we know they are beneficial? It's only when we study them. But the beauty with Africa, or Uganda, if I come home, we have indigenous knowledge, as Dr. Juliet said. Our forefathers have been treating these diseases. So what we can do as scientists, as epidemiologists, and is to help decolonize science by working with our indigenous communities and helping them document what it is that they are doing, but most importantly also subjecting that to science. Let's do rigorous tests, as Professor Wako has said, so that we see if these drugs, if these plants actually have medicinal properties, how efficacious are they, how well do they work, and on what sort of organisms do they work. And then we can profile them and have what we call candidate drugs, candidate vaccines. I think that's where the US and the Western world has made money off COVID. Africa, we've been sitting back.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Shiba, rather. Our dear viewers, I don't want to take you so much into deep science, but I want to let you know that we fall sick from these microorganisms or pathogens, but also plants fall sick. They get diseases also. They get affected by several different microorganisms, and once they get sick, those plants get sick, it affects our food security. Our animals we live with, they are a source of food, but they also fall sick. They get these diseases. So when we are talking about exploiting the pathogen, we are looking at everything, even the environment themselves. So let's think out of the box, look at a very diverse area and be able to exploit. What can I do to my plant? My plant is falling sick. What do I need to do? Can I invent? Can I come up with a drug, then go through the science and be able to treat the plant? If the animals are falling sick, we are still importing a lot of drugs to treat these animals. But we want to work as scientists, or with everybody to come out with potential remedies. These potential remedies will be turned into money. Once we make the products, we are able to use, but we are able to export or sell to other markets. So really that is why we are emphasizing and talking about science. Probably, Juliet, you can give us more from the socio-economic perspective. What do we need to know so that we can prepare this science? What has made us lag behind? What can we do to reactivate our minds to think innovatively? Over to you, Juliet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I think that's a very good question to me and to the public. Yes. Because we are looking for behavior intervention. We are looking for how to solve our problems. When there are social innovations, That means there are problems in society, and we as Africans, we as Ugandans, we as the community, we at the family level, we at the individual level, to talk about the sociological circle. We need to come up with ideas which can solve our own problems. So if we are living with our animals, we are living with chicken, we are living with cattle in our homes, they sometimes transmit diseases to us, and we transmit diseases to them. So we need one health approach, which is a multidisciplinary approach, which is multi-sectoral approach, in order to do away with those diseases. But at the same time, as we do our innovations, we base those on the indigenous knowledge. What do we know? What did our forefathers do? What can we do today to solve those particular problems? So in that way, we encourage our manufacturers to put science into a sellable object. We want to make sure that the innovations done as scientists can be sold on our local market, and people earn an income as well from that. And then we can encourage our local communities to have these innovations to solve the home-based problems, because we are the ones who know our problems. So at the end of the day, diseases can be approached because you know the signs, the symptoms, just you as an individual, just you as a member of the community, and then we put that into the science perspective.
Wow, thank you so much. I still want to follow up with what you have just said, because we know science has a basis or a background, and our future scientists probably are not yet born, others have just been born. What do we need to do to inculcate the spirit of science? I have seen some of my children and others, when you say mathematics or biology, they start shying away. And we know it is those are some of the ingredients needed to build the science we desire. What do we need to do? Or what is going wrong with the perceptions of young generations that science is hard? We just need to dismantle that as perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, again. I think it's very important for the young minds to be capacitated, to encourage them to do innovations. It's very important to put their perspective into looking back at what used to happen in order to solve the current problems. The pathogens are here with us. We've had jiggers. We are now having COVID-19. How do we solve that? We need a homegrown solution to these kind of problems. But we need to encourage the young people. We need to build research. We need to do trials. We need the communities to accept us to carry out those clinical trials. We need to encourage our government to fund our science so that we can be able to export any products, any drugs which are homegrown. So it's the young people we need to encourage and focus on, and then the older people to support and share the knowledge which they have with the young minds.
Juliet, in summary, you are saying we need to all be connected.
Yes.
And we can be connected at different levels. At science level, at government level, at technical level, at international level, and so on. And from the global economics and perspectives, Mr. Muhumuza, you just need to encourage us and encourage the viewers and say that this thing is possible. We can be connected, we can use the resources available, but we start small, but also with a purpose and with a focus. Muhumuza, what do you want to say about that? How can we be reorganized in order to promote science from different levels, whether it is at local government, at a community level, at a higher institution level, at primary level? We need that kind of connectivity. Science needs to be part of our blood. That's basically what I'm trying to say. But from economics, tell us how that can be done and how possible is it from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Moderator. I think it's quite an interesting observation when you talk about connectivity. We are all living in an ecosystem.
Yes.
I think the scientists have literally displayed the connection between the plants, the animals, and ourselves. Diseases move either way. So in a sense, we are already connected to each other. Now, economics will come in to say, why is it important to make these connections viable, useful, and therefore beneficial, to give us a reason why we should pursue them, right, even across the ages. I'm looking at some of the displays behind us here, and there's one interesting one of mindset. The young people need to be learning and admiring these big scientists. So you must invest in these big scientists to discover the science, but also for the young people to look up and be connected in their minds. To say, I want to be like Dr. Shiba there. I want to be like Professor when I grow up. I want to be the next generation that discovers the vaccine for, I don't know which pathogen will come in 2050. So they begin to connect upwards in terms of knowledge, but they're also beginning to connect to their classroom work. And so our teachers must make sure the teaching encourages these people to connect to the future that they're aspiring to. And this, the economics is to bring out the benefit, but also to make these connections efficient. We talked about surveillance. And we all know how we were really running after the very first COVID cases. Who was with who? Chasing them, Land Rovers going this side, ambulances going there. Now, the other young people said, why are you bothering? Yes. We are already connected by the web. Yes. Let's do apps.
Yes.
Then the app will tell you whose phone was next to who. The Koreans were the first there. So we are already connected, but the science is helping us to make that process efficient, that process more beneficial, that me who is helping you to connect to each other, making money, but also I'm offering you a service by you being connected to your people. I was here and I'm having people somewhere installing data and the internet. They said we need money now. Out of connection on your phone, you are able to pay. So these things make economic sense to the person providing the service, but also make it efficient for you to do so many things at the same time. So the interconnectedness, economics is saying it is possible to make money out of it, but also to use those connections to make more money for more people and make life better. I want to believe now we are doing surveillance very easily. You saw the chaos that was at our airport until we said, but you have your phones, we have your emails. Just leave a sample and go. We shall find you if we need you.
I like that, Mumza. Mumza, we are saying technology is very good, but we need to be players. We need to be part of the technology, because right now we are mainly consumers. We are here talking about these mobile apps. We are here, we are in front of very, very sophisticated cameras. But what is our contribution? Not even the battery in that camera. Not even the battery in that camera. So we need a holistic approach. We need an open mindset system that we can. And indeed, we can if we encourage ourselves and if we learn from our elders, but also learn from other developed technologies. Yes. But the most important thing is to adopt and adapt and then implement. I think, Juliet, you can talk to us through that process of adapting and then use the system to develop your own system.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, again. I think that's very interesting, because as we sit here, there's what we call interconnectedness, and the world is global. So there's globalization here. We all in our different capacities as scientists represent different parts of the economy. So when we develop a product like the anti-tick vaccine, it's going to be used on the cattle, and then we are going to be the consumers as human beings. At the same time, the ticks as the ones which are biting our cattle, they are also being prevented. But then we are the ones developing a homegrown solution so that our beef and meat is healthy, and we are also healthy, the people who eat it. So one health, one approach, one people.
Wow, thank you so much. I like that concept. Manufacturing is indeed a very long process, and at every level there is an opportunity. For example, you talked about anti-tick vaccine, but that vaccine eventually will be packed in a vial, whether it is a metallic vial, whether it is a plastic vial. It will even have a rubber top. Sometimes, even on top of rubber top, there is another metal seal. All those are different sources of manufacturing, and which can be taken up by different industries at different levels. So as we talk of a pathogen, it is so connected, so many other enterprises that we don't only say that somebody is making a vaccine. You say, if a vaccine is being produced, what am I contributing to that vaccine to be on the market? Am I contributing on the rubber top, or the vial where the vaccine is being packaged? So that's the kind of mindset we like to create through this Science Week. But this is just the beginning. And Professor Wako can really tell us what the universities are doing and what secondary schools, what primary schools, what kindergarten schools need to do in order to enhance science. Over to you, Prof.
Yes, thank you very much. Universities have really done a lot. Of course, the story started with building capacity to be able to move over products. There is a lot of research going around in the universities in various aspects. There is research going on around at the preclinical stage. There is a lot of research going on in almost all sectors. Universities really are doing quite a wonderful job. And I think at the lower levels, that's where the orientation to science should really think. Because if we are to move forward, I think science should be made easy. I heard somebody saying everybody thinks science is extremely hard. That's true. And I think the curriculum reforms going on should help to make science a bit more easy. We have to make science easy for these younger people, so that they are able.
How do you think we can make science easy? We need to have prototypes on the ground. We have to have hands-on, vocational training.
Absolutely.
Yes.
At a primary level, all these concepts which you are seeing, the killer EV bus, should be feasible from the primary actually. You know, and children are quite exciting. They make these models, but we don't support them. And when they go to school, they are supposed to throw away the model they've made and go for theory. And that's where the problem is. At the moment we make learning very practical, oriented, skill-oriented across the board, then we should be able to.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Let's go back to our pathogen economy once again. Once we get these pathogens within us, within our environment, within our animals, it requires management. It requires what we call part of it is surveillance, but trying to establish the cause. Then when you get the cause and you know the disease is there, you need to manage it. Once we manage it, most of the time we want to focus on eradicating it, or so that we don't want it. So from Dr. Shiba, those are different levels. We can call them also value chain along the way. And at each of those stages, there is an opportunity for science and technology and innovation. Because you gave a very, very good example of an EpiTent. An EpiTent came up to decongest the health facilities. What opportunities are there? We have health facilities. They may not be enough. There are other possible solutions like EpiTent and others. Speak to us through that, the opportunities available, what scientists can tap in, or what they should look at in order to explore science in that field. And then, of course, once the product comes up, it is part of the pathogen economy.
Okay. Thank you, moderator. That's a very critical question. So going back to science, you keep saying the scientists. I think today I want to emphasize that we are all scientists. All of us are born scientists. Because as children, you're always asking questions. So there is what we call the scientific inquiry. So what we can do as the researchers within these research institutions, not just the scientists, because all departments do research. So let's take this information out, what we know, but present it in such a way that everybody in society understands what we are putting across. I'll use the example of COVID, which is what is most current now. This time what we did right as researchers was to state what it is we are dealing with, that we are dealing with a virus. That is not important. I don't need to know what a virus is. But we are able to say this virus is spread through breath. When I breathe out, those droplets. So to solve it, you need a barrier. It's spread by contact. When I touch this contaminated surface, touch my mouth, my nose, my eyes. So we need to wash our hands, or we need to keep our hands clean. Now that can be translated into any language without necessarily talking about the name of the agent causing the disease. And then what society has done is quickly utilize this information. So I'm going to use that to show the value chain. So those who were producing alcohol, the bars had been closed, so consumption had gone down. But they still had their alcohol with them.
Yes.
And back in primary, we were taught that alcohol can kill germs. It's a disinfectant at a certain level. So they quickly applied that knowledge and turned their booze into disinfectants. But why were they able to do that? Because scientists, researchers told them that we need something to kill the germs. And there was a market, as Dr. Muhumuza was saying. Everybody was at risk. So it made business sense at that point to venture into disinfectants. That would never have happened if scientists had not provided that information in a language that they understand. So my appeal is that we stop talking to ourselves as scientists. We are very good at doing research and publishing it in our journals, which only we scientists read. But if we are to commercialize this pathogen economy, we are going to have to put out information to the different sectors. And even these children at a young level, as the professor was saying in primary, we need to be appealing to them by sharing this information in a language and at using terms they can identify with. I think if we are able to do that as scientists, then science is going to become commonplace and it is, just like mathematics. Many people say, I fear math, I fear math, but everyone wants to be rich. How are you going to be rich when you can't count your money? We say people are illiterate, but they are able to count money. So I think it's a mindset, and our job as the privileged few who are researchers and scientists, let's help by distilling this information and putting it out there.
Yes, Shuba, you raise a very, very, very important aspect. We need to translate. We need to customize this information to the society, so that they can understand and appreciate. As we look for opportunities of these pathogens or microorganisms in terms of vaccines, in terms of drugs for treatment, in terms of diagnostics, there are so many other aspects, other value chains involved that need to be understood and appreciated, and then we can exploit them, develop products like developing those products from alcohol that are sanitizing. So there is a lot, but the people out there, they need to see connectivity. They need to know that what they made or what they saw has contributed actually to the prevention of COVID-19 or to the even eradication of other previous diseases or control of other diseases. The message is these pathogens are still here with us. COVID is going to end, another pathogen is going to be there. So the opportunities are always there. Why are we struggling? Because we need to save lives. We need to save our lives. We need to save the lives of our animals. We know why we need to do it. We need to save our plants. We know how to, we need to why we need to do it. If we don't do it, we will perish. So let's tap into those different opportunities, those different areas to innovate, develop products at different levels. And that's why this team is here talking about the pathogen economy. We are here talking about science, but this is not a one-off thing. It should be part of us. It should be part of our culture. It should be part of our life. And when I saw culture, of course, Juliet comes in very, very strongly. At the different cultural levels, there is a lot of knowledge. There is a lot of information that can be got from there. Even the names of these diseases, these communities give them names. I've not moved around. Probably, Juliet, you know, if there are some names, you know, they have given COVID-19. We talk COVID-19, but out there could be already names being given to COVID-19. Probably, Juliet talked to us through that perspective of cultural perspective in relation to science and how it can be harnessed.
Thank you, moderator, for that for that encouragement to talk about how we perceive as communities, how we look at diseases. Most of these diseases have local names. COVID-19 has come up with several names since its emergency a year ago. People refer to it as corona, just like you've seen that there's an English word for benzene, and then also locally people call it benzene. So they have different names, just like we've had HIV/AIDS. HIV/AIDS has had a local name, slim, meaning it makes you very thin. So COVID-19 has also had those names, particularly showing that we culturally contextualize any disease which we live with. And also the medicine, as you've seen the new scientists coming up with COVID, it comes from the very fact that it's corona. So it's referred to locally. So it has emerged with that name. So science is within us, just like Dr. Shiba, Professor Wako has indicated, and Dr. Muhumuza. And you, Dr. Mugisha, you know very well, Professor Mugisha, that diseases emerge from us human beings and then also affect the animals. And also animals, even plants, have diseases which we treat using our indigenous knowledge. So they also have different local terms in different languages. Corona may have risen as a result of talking about COVID-19, but then there are also other names which I may not at the moment quickly think about, but there are several names which have come up to refer to the disease. And by that, we also remember it. How do we differentiate it from the common flu and from the common cough? And is the cure very differently developed in terms of corona as a new emerging disease, or COVID, or Senyigo Mukambwe? So all those names have come up to indicate that it's not a common flu, but it's a very intensive, it's a very bad flu, different from H1N1, different from other pneumonia, different from all these other types of fevers and coughs which come up and affect us in daily lives. So we'll always remember Senyigo Mukambwe, very bad flu, corona, COVID-19.
Yes. Thank you so much, Juliet, and thank you so much, our dear viewers and listeners. We are almost coming toward the end of this session, but before we do, Juliet has just made me realize that actually COVID-19 has shown us that the whole world is a global village. That these organisms, or what we call pathogens, can be found anywhere and in any part of the world, including here in Uganda. And at different level, we can develop several different solutions. And those solutions, they are the ones we turn into innovations and turn into money. So as we come to the end of this session, I'm going to request my dear discussants and panelists for each of them to give just a take-home message to our viewers from your own perspective based on this discussion we have just had. And I will start with Mr. Muhumuza. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The conversation really has blended the science into what you live with. You now can Google even local words. 5 years ago, you wouldn't find those local words. Now you'll find them there because you're trying to make the science speak to what people do. I discovered from the scientists that we didn't wash our faces just for the sake of washing. Yet we grew up knowing it's cultural. You wake up, wash your face. Yes. But later on, we discovered there was trachoma in the 50s. And the flies that spread it would stitch from those things that you have in the morning in the corner of your eye to fly to different people's eyes. But once you have washed them out, the flies won't be there. Cutting our hair, there was lice. So you want to prevent those things, but now it is blended into the cultural context. Now you have your smartphone. You really don't need to know things. Each one of us, you're fearing math, but each one of us has a phone number.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Muhumuza. Over to you, Juliet, for just final words to our viewers.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think what we need to take up is that the youth need to adapt to the future. They need to think through history. They need to know that these diseases have been there before and they are there in the future. And we need social innovations as Africans, as Ugandans, as from all parts of the world, how to solve these problems. We've had the West Nile fever affecting America. We've had African swine fever affecting other Southeastern Asian countries. But it's also affecting us here in Uganda. And we are looking at pork, which we eat every day and we utilize for our meals. But how can we get rid of it? Look at yourself. Behavior intervention is the answer. Look at the way you behave and then look at the way you can control and then come up with an innovation.
Thank you so much. Behavior intervention. Professor Wako.
Yes, thank you very much. As universities, the number of products under development in the side of therapeutics. You've heard of Covidex, there is Covilis from Guru, there is Tascov in Sitama being assessed, and many more from various institutions. I think what we would like to appeal to Ugandans is to trust us.
Yes.
We have now the capacity, we have our resources, and we should develop them.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. To you, Dr. Shiba.
Thank you, moderator. Just to re-emphasize that there is great need for homegrown solutions to the pathogens that we have here in Uganda. We are richly endowed. We are indeed the pearl of Africa, not only from the outside beauty, but also in terms of pathogens. And what COVID has shown us is that the homegrown solutions that we are going to come up with are not only going to solve our problems at an individual level, but they are going to make a contribution to our economy in Uganda and globally. And as preside, I think that's what we are working at, trying to exploit this opportunity. So we appeal that you trust us. The scientists, as Professor has said, are busy working behind the stage, and at the right time we shall be unveiling to you these different products, and we want you to be part of us by providing us with the information we need in terms of the problems you're facing, but also give us feedback on what is working and what you see is not working.
Wow, thank you so much. Our dear viewers, the most important message is that we are partners. All of us, we need to work together in harnessing science, technology, and innovation in order to transform our lives and also transform our economy. So we call upon you, our dear viewers, that let us find different levels of engagement, different levels of interaction, different levels of promoting science and technology everywhere, even within our homes. Let's allow our children to explore very early in life different things that can motivate their minds, activate their minds into developing things. And those are the things that will actually help them as they grow into coming up with solutions, with innovations. And we would like to call you to be part of this system of Science Week. Every year it is going to be a Science Week. During this same time, we'll be commemorating the International Science Day tomorrow. But for several years, we'll be celebrating. But we don't want just to come here to Kororo and talk. We want to come here to Kororo with products, with innovations, knowing that we are making money out of science, making money out of the pathogens. We are reaching pathogens, reaching biodiversity, and I can't thank you more than that. Thank you so much for being with us, our dear panelists and discussants. Thank you so much for providing all the information. I know you are available. You can be reached whenever you are needed. So we want to thank you so much. Our partners in broadcasting, thank you so much. We adore you. Let's also utilize that technology. Next time you'll tell me you have a new camera that can capture things very well. Otherwise, thank you so much. I remain Dr. Lawrence Mugisha, the moderator for this session afternoon, Pathogen Economy, and we'll be coming back with more programs. Thank you so much, and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.